Hello, my name is Dan Strutzel, and I was the Vice President of Publishing at Nightingale-Conant for over 14 years, and a longtime employee of Nightingale-Conant for 23 years. It is my pleasure to introduce you to this incredible collection of audio ideas in sound, the ultimate Wayne Dyer Library. I not only had the distinct honor to help publish, distribute, and market many of Wayne Dyer's classic Nightingale-Conant audio programs, but I also had the unique opportunity to interact with and learn from this incredible human being. So I have a unique perspective on the man you are about to learn from in this program. I can honestly say that in my more than 2 decades in the personal development industry, Wayne Dyer had a greater impact on myself and on the hundreds of thousands of Nightingale-Conant customers we served than just about any author we ever published. So who was this man, Wayne Dyer? Wayne W. Dyer was an internationally renowned author and speaker in the fields of self-development and spiritual growth. Over the 4 decades of his career, he wrote more than 40 books, including 21 New York Times bestsellers. He created many audio and video programs and appeared on thousands of television and radio shows. He starred in 10 national public television specials. You may have seen some of them yourself in the early 2000s, which raised over $250 million for public television. Born and raised in Detroit, Michigan, Dyer held a doctorate in educational counseling from Wayne State University and had served as an associate professor at St. John's University in New York. Through his early work in college-level teaching and clinical psychology, he discovered a widespread need for the principles of self-discovery and personal growth, and sought to bring these ideas to a wider audience. His first book for general readers, Your Erroneous Zones, published in 1976, became an international bestseller, truly one of the best-selling books of all time, selling over 35 million copies, and it launched his career as an author and speaker. After publishing a string of best-selling books on the practical psychology of self-improvement, Dyer felt a shift occur in his thinking that led him to explore the spiritual aspects of human experience. We saw that distinct shift in the titles that we published from Wayne, from audio programs on how to manage one's emotions and actualize one's full potential, like How to Be a No-Limit Person, to audio programs on how to access one's higher self, like The Awakened Life and The Secrets to Manifesting Your Destiny. Dyer was affectionately called the father of motivation by his fans. Despite a childhood spent in orphanages and foster homes, he overcame many obstacles to make his dreams come true and spent much of his life showing others how to do the same. His main message was that every person has the potential to live an extraordinary life. What's more, it's possible for every person to manifest their deepest desires if they honor their inner divinity and consciously choose to live from their highest self. When not traveling the globe delivering his uplifting words, Dyer wrote from his home in Maui, enjoying the beauty of nature, his swims with the sea creatures, and happy visits from his children and grandchildren. And sadly, after being diagnosed with leukemia in 2009, in 2015 he suffered a heart attack, and as Wayne would have put it, he left his body, returning to the infinite source to embark on his next adventure. Fortunately for you, we have decades of Wayne Dyer's amazing wisdom presented in this unforgettable audio collection. This program is comprised of classic audio segments from over 12 of Wayne's best-selling programs and consists of many of the best ideas over Wayne Dyer's long and illustrious career. And it not only contains ideas for you, but also for those you love, whether it be your lifetime spouse or partner, or even your children. I can still remember the days when Wayne would arrive at our Nightingale-Conant studios, always recording from an outline, never a script, delivering all of his ideas and stories in a compelling fashion, straight from the heart. Listening to this series brought me right back to those moments with Wayne, when I knew I was hearing priceless wisdom from a soon-to-be legend. I'm excited to share those same priceless moments with you, and I'm equally excited to see the impact that Wayne's ideas will soon have on your emotional and spiritual life. We begin in this first session with the foundational idea from which nearly everything Wayne discussed arose, the idea that you are in control of your thoughts. And not only can you choose the thoughts that are most empowering for you, but that you can direct those thoughts to manifest whatever outcome you desire. So let's begin the series by taking a front row seat at this live seminar as Nightingale-Conant is proud to present the ultimate Wayne Dyer Library. Take it away, Wayne.
I'm just beginning to understand that what we think about is much more powerful than I'd ever given consideration to before in my life. And I'm beginning to get evidence for it. I'm beginning to see it as I look back on things. When I was a little boy, we had a Admiral television set in 1951. I was 11 years old. We were one of the few people in the neighborhood to have this little TV. I used to stay up late at night and watch the Tonight Show with Steve Allen on it. And I had this thought, and it was a very powerful thought. And the thought was that I would be on the Tonight Show. I just knew it. And I used to tell my brothers what I was going to talk about when I would be on the Tonight Show. I was only 11 or 12 years old. They were 13 and 15. And they'd say, oh, yeah, sure, you're always dreaming. You've always got... Well, I'd still stay up at night, and everybody else would go off to sleep, and I would be watching the show. I'd watch it every single night, all of his funny routines that he did and all the characters on it and everything. And I could see myself. I could picture myself sitting on the panel there and having him interview me or having him be there with me and all of that. And that passed, and many, many things like that, though, in my life that I thought about. Well, the irony of ironies is that 1976, 25 years later, I'm the author of a book that is at the top of the bestseller list around the world, The Erroneous Zones. I'm invited to do The Tonight Show, and Shecky Greene is the host that night. It was the very first time I ever did the show, out of 34 or 35 times. I was so excited. It was like a dream come true that I was going to be on The Tonight Show. I'd already done several other big shows and all of that, but this was really something big. I went over, there was a bank of phones outside the green room where you get dressed for the show. I decided to call my wife and family back home and tell them that I was going to be on and Shecky Greene was going to be the host and so on. I went over to the phone, I picked up the phone, and I called my wife and I was talking to her, and then on the phone next to me, in this bank of phones, Steve Allen. Steve Allen is standing there talking on the phone to his wife. And I take the phone receiver out of my hand and telling my wife, I said, you're not going to believe this, but Steve Allen is standing here right next to me. And I take the phone out and reach it over so that she can hear his voice. And he's talking to his wife. And he's looking at me like, who is this crazy guy? Well, it turns out that the very first guest on the show that night was Steve Allen. After all those years, and there I was sitting there talking to him. A lot of people will label a situation like that as circumstances, or just coincidence or just blind random luck or whatever. I've come to know that there's no such thing in the universe, that what you think about expands, and that if you have a thought in your mind and you stay with that thought and you know it to be true, that it's just a matter of bringing it into form. And if you're willing to do that, if you're willing to bring it into form, it's going to happen for you. Nothing can stop it. Nothing can stop it. And I don't think there's anything random about it. I just don't even believe in randomness at all. I think that everything in the universe is absolutely perfect, at the tiniest subatomic level and at the largest level.
You have to act on what you think about. You can't act on anything else. The ancestor to every action is a thought. So if your mind is on what you don't like, then what you don't like has to expand for you. Now know this, if you know nothing else, that every single problem that you have in your life, every problem that you have, you experience in your mind. You experience it in thought. In thought. It's how you process things. It's what you do with it in your thoughts that makes it a problem. Otherwise, if you're in a coma, you wouldn't be experiencing it. It's your mind. So if you know that the problems that you have in your life are in your mind, then you must know that the solution to those problems also has to be in your mind. It can't be in something or someone changing in order for you to get better or happier. If you think that someone else makes you miserable, you get those people and send them to me. And I will treat them, and then you will get better. And that's absurd. Of course we know that. So that the solution as well as the problem is within. I spent 2 years writing a book called What Do You Really Want for Your Children? What do you really want for your children? If you want for them what I think we want for our children, that is to be self-reliant, that is to have a sense of mission and purpose in life, that is to be creative, that is to be happy, fulfilled, blame-free people who take responsibility for their lives, rather than people who wear the right clothes and have the right labels and do all of these things, then what you really want for your children is something based on strength. And you can't build anything when you start with weakness. So that if what you're doing with your kids is always seeing them doing things wrong, and that's your problem, that's what's difficult for you, is you see them doing things wrong all the time, then how do you change that? You change it by looking for the things that they do right, by catching them doing things right, by focusing on their greatness, their grandness, their divineness, their beauty, and reinforcing that. Giving away what's inside. And the more you catch them doing things right, the more you find them doing things right. And the more you catch them doing things wrong, the more you find them doing things wrong. And it's all your experience. It's the same thing is true of all your physical maladies. If you've got a sniffle in your nose, and you say, it's Monday morning, it's in my nose, but tomorrow it'll be in my throat. I know it. There's your mind. Those are your thoughts. That's 99% of who you are. And you say, well, on Wednesday it'll be in my chest. On Thursday I'm going to have a fever. I'm going to have to take Friday off. And it's still Monday morning. Monday morning you got a sniffle, and all of a sudden it's Friday with a fever. You become what you think about all day long. That was Earl Nightingale, the recipient of this honor 2 years ago before his death. Man who I was honored to write the introduction to his book, The Strangest Secret. You become what you think about. As you think, so shall you be. And that is true for virtually everything in your life. So that people who are looking at their partner and looking at what makes them miserable, it's not surprising that misery expands for them. You become what you think about all day long. What you think about is what expands. Now, what do most people think about? Take salespeople, for example, especially salespeople who are not very effective in their lives. If you're going into a sales encounter and your mind, your humanity, your divineness, your connection to eternity, your total being, which is invisible, just sort of trapped in this package called Wayne, or called Mike, or called Sally. If it's on, this isn't going to work out. Then what do you have to act on other than this isn't going to work out? Or I'm not very good at this, or I'm not experienced at that, or this person has been beating me around the bush for a long time anyway, and they're not going to close on this thing. I know they're not going to close. What are you going to act on? What else do you have to act on? What you think about expands. And so that's why it's so important to not have your mind, your humanity, clogged up with negativity, with judgment, with the news. You can always find something negative if that's what you're looking for. If you want to see an increase in racism in the world, you just have to look around and you'll see it. But if you want to see an increase in brotherhood, you'll see that too. And you can be a part of that and convert it all. Because a collective consciousness starts with each one of us. What you think about expands. That's the first rule. The second thing is that what you think about is already here. In the world of thought, everything you think about is already here. That's really important. It's not like it's someplace else. And everything you think about, every thought you have, is conceivable in your mind. You can conceive of it in form. Boy, do you need to know that, and do your children need to know that. That every time they tell themselves something that they can't do. When my little daughter Summer will be on, I lay down on my back and I put my arms back and I lift her up, and each one of the other kids, I can lift them all the way up, right up to the ceiling, and they can do it by balancing themselves, all right? But every time I would do that, she would start to fall back. I'd said to her, Summer, what's the name of Daddy's new book? She said, you'll see it when you believe it. I said, well, do you believe? She says, I believe. I said, come on, I want to hear it. Do you believe? She says, all right, I believe. I said, well, what do you believe? I can do it. And then I go through this whole thing. Do you see yourself doing it? Can you balance yourself? Can you do this? Do you have the capacity to do that? I can do it. I can do it. I said, all right. She says, well, get on with it, all right? And sure enough, I lift her up and she goes all the way up to the ceiling. As soon as she changes her thoughts. What do you think the difference is between a child who can swim and a person who can't? Do you think that the moment a child knows how to swim, that suddenly they have new physical capacities that they didn't have before? No. They have a new belief. And they're acting on that belief. Or riding a bike or anything like that. It's changing around the thought. The physical will just sort of adapt to it. Or as the Sufis say, if you don't have a temple in your heart, you'll never find your heart in a temple. It's about having a temple in your heart. It's about knowing that what you think about expands. Every thought you have is what your humanity is. And every thought you have is already here. The third rule out of 4 is that you must be willing to do what it takes to bring your thought into form. Now, you notice I didn't say you have to work hard. I didn't say you have to struggle. I didn't say you have to fight. You have to go out there and make it real tough. May not be at all. The key word in making this philosophy of believing is seeing is the word willing. You must be willing. You are listening to someone who has always been willing to do what it takes. Always. From the years I spent at an orphanage in Michigan for 9 years, I was the one who was willing to do what it took to make those into pleasant days for myself and all the kids that were there with me, including my older brother. To when I wrote Erroneous Zones, being told that, oh, we don't have an advertising budget, and no, we can't do this, and no, we can't send you out on the road, and no, you can't get on these shows, and you can't do that. And every time anybody said that, I always sort of thanked them in my heart, because that just gave me the impetus to do what it takes, to be willing to do what it takes. Buy up the first printing, which is what I did. Buy up the whole second printing. Put them in my car. Take them across the country. Spend 2 years out there on the road. I was told that the only way you can talk to everybody in America is to get on all the big talk shows. But all the big talk shows never heard of Wayne Dyer. So there's another way to talk to everybody in America. And that's to go to everybody in America. Go on every little radio show in every little town across the country. Most of those, like AM Columbus and Good Morning Jacksonville, I mean, if you got a new avocado dip, they'll put you on, all right? Take the books with you. Just do it. And don't tell yourself that I got to struggle. And the final thing is, you have to understand that you cannot fail in this process. There's no failure here. Failure is an editorial judgment imposed by others. So you want to unclog yourself of judgment. When you judge another person, when anybody judges another person, always remember that you do not define that other person with your judgment. You define yourself only as a person needing to judge. Each one of us are defined by our thoughts and the actions subsequent to those thoughts. Each one of us, that's how we're defined. Not by other people defining us. When my kids ask me about their reputation, I say, forget your reputation. You have no control over your reputation. Your reputation is in the hands of others. That's what a reputation is. I come up here and speak to 1,000 people here. I have 1,000 reputations. I can't control that. The only thing you can control is your character, which comes from your thoughts and the love that you have in there that you have to give away. Not your reputation and what other people think of you. That's outside of your control. You have to think of a thought as an energy outside of you that you tune into that goes endlessly, so that every thought that ever was is out there. And all you have to do is tune into it. And every thought that anyone ever had is out there. And the transformed person is the one who can go beyond their form and really understand that. And so the universe, when you think like that, you think of it as ending, you have to then try to imagine, how could it end? I mean, what's the end? What's the end of the universe? Would somebody explain what that is? I mean, in a linear sense, is there a wall there? Or is there a cliff there? Or what is it? What do you think is there? If you go look out there into the sky, and it's like, where do you think it ends? This is a big place. 1 billion stars for every grain of sand. That's not so hard to figure when it's endless. And take a look at this word that we throw around as if it were something that we just all know what it means. Translation: one song. Universe. One song. Each of us are a note in this symphony, but it's all one. So abundance is the universe's response to any belief that you have in scarcity. Now, one of the laws of the universe, the one song, is that what you think about expands. Okay? And that you have to allow whatever it is that you are and want in life to flow unimpeded. The unimpeded flowing, in combination with the oneness of it all, creates abundance. And when you think about something, you're using thought. That thought is energy. And it must flow unimpeded, unattached, detached, if you will. And why does what you think about expand? I mean, it's just not, you just don't believe it because I'm saying that. Why does what you think about expand? Well, what you think about is what we call visualization, imagery, thought, whatever it is, all right? And imagery or visualization is a process in the world of the formless thought, the same as practice is in the world of the form, in the realm of form. When you judge another human being, understand that you do not define them. They're already defined. You define yourself. Your judgment is a definition of you. That's your need to put somebody else into a separate place other than you. You define yourself every time you judge somebody else. They're just who they are, on their own path. Now what I want you to do is think about everything that's ever going to happen to you from now until you leave this plane. Any of you ever think of the word disaster? You know where it comes from? Disassociation from the astral. That's the origin of disaster. Disassociating from the astral. The astral is thought. That's the multidimensional part of you, your thought, your ability to think. When you disassociate from that, you'll always create disasters because you'll start blaming somebody else for what happened to you. You'll think something else did it to you. Somebody else gave you cancer. Somebody else made you unhappy. Somebody else depressed me. You made me feel bad. I'm having an anxiety attack. Like anxiety attacks. What is that? And you come up with all kinds of reasons why your life isn't what you want it to be. And you don't understand that you're creating it all. It's all yours. And if you want the miracle, you just have to be pure thought. Now let's look at everything that's going to happen to you, and what dimension is that in? That's also thought. Everything that'll ever happen to you from now on is in the dimension of thought. You can't have any of it. You can't touch it, can't see it, can't smell it, can't get a hold of it. It's not real. That only leaves us with what? Now. Whoops. No, now. Oh, no. Oh, that's gone. Oh, it's gone. Oh, it's gone. There's no now. This is getting really tough. But we know that everything that's going to happen to us is in thought, everything that's ever happened to us in thought, and the simple truth is that the working unit of your life is now. It's now. It's now. It's now. How good are you at it? How good are you at it, at being in this now? Where's your mind? Is it back there? Is it out there someplace? Is it going to go to Florida? Talk about the good old days that you never had one? What's it going to do? We're so stuck in form. Now, I say to you, you can unstick yourself from form by choosing to do so right now. Just choose to do it. You have to understand that if you're going to change a habit, you must be the habit. You are now the treatment. You are no longer the poison. If you take a cigarette and puff it and put it into your lungs, you are poison. Poison is you. It's in your esophagus, it's in your pancreas, it's in your liver, it's in your bloodstream. That's what you are. You have become the poison. When you no longer are the poison and you are the treatment, you no longer see yourself as a human doing. You're now a being who can walk right past people smoking and know that that isn't you any longer. You're no longer that. And you don't even have to do anything. You just have to become the treatment. Isn't that powerful, what thought can do? And that all of those tricks that we call miracles, we're all capable of by using thought.
You know that most of the problems that people have in their life are in their mind. It's their thoughts. People worry. They worry about getting older. They worry about whether they're going to have enough money. They worry about whether their children are going to be virgins. They worry about whether their children are going to do drugs. They're worried about how they're going to make their mortgage payments. There's worry, worry, worry all the time. Now think about what that is. It is just thoughts. It's just thinking in your mind about something that is going to happen. And you know that that kind of thought can create all kinds of anguish within you. It can make your blood pressure go up. It can create an ulcer. I mean, you can actually grow an ulcer from thought, form from thought. Your blood pressure going up, your heart disease increasing. Those are the result of the way that we think, so that you can have physiological reactions to these thoughts. And when you start thinking in different ways, when you start just using thought in a way that is productive and useful for you, and saying to yourself, instead of occupying my present moments with these thoughts of some disaster down the road, some horrendous thing that's going to happen, I'm not going to have those. I'm going to anticipate that it's going to work out fine. And then I'm going to start acting on that expectation, on that belief. You just expect that your plane is going to take off on time. And you expect that your children are going to be happy and that they're going to make sensible decisions. And then you will treat them with those expectations. And you will arrive at the airport with those expectations. And even if you arrive there and your plane is late, you don't tell yourself that it shouldn't be that way. You say, well, it probably is saving my life. It's like I called a good friend of mine and I got a ticket a couple of years ago for speeding, 10 miles over a speed limit. I called him up and I was talking about it. He said, don't you understand that man saved your life? I said, what? He said, yeah, he saved your life. He said, just around the corner from there was an accident waiting to happen. For sure, that would have been you. And he stopped you right there. And he said, that's the way I look at it. He said, that's the way I look at it. Instead of looking at the negative in it, I say to myself, if my plane were taking off now, there might be some difficulty. It's not supposed to take off now. It's going to take off when it's supposed to. How can you argue with that? It's going to take off when it's supposed to. It's like learning how to use thought in such a way that you don't create ulcers and you don't create disasters in your mind, and before long there are none. And even the disasters, quote, that are out there, you now begin to look for the opportunity in those. You begin to look for what's the blessing, what's the gift, what is here for me, instead of all the negativity.
The interesting thing about the positive and the negative are that we're learning through biochemical exploration and engineering. There are enzymes in the brain that release different endorphins into your brain as a result of the way that you think. A person who thinks a positive thought is not just saying, oh, goody, I'm just thinking positive thoughts. They are affecting the chemistry of their body.
And when you look at things like schizophrenia and some of the least understood of the mental illnesses, we say, yes, there's chemical imbalances there. And the scientists all get together and say, yeah, it's chemistry. What are you talking about, all this thinking stuff? If we can alter the chemistry, we can alter the disease. Of course, it's true. I buy it 100%, but it's only 50% of the battle. What causes the chemistry to change in a human being? What causes an ulcer? Isn't that a chemical change brought about as a result of thinking? Isn't that what it is? Well, the same thing is true of a mental illness. Yes, the chemistry is different, but believe that you control your chemistry. It's your chemistry. You carry it around. It's yours. And every patient who I've ever worked with in the really severely disturbed realm still must understand that they're doing this to themselves. Yes, your chemistry is unbalanced, but don't believe that we're just going to put you on lithium, or we're just going to put you on this drug, and the drug is going to, for the rest of your life, do it. You've got to believe that you can, in fact, alter any chemistry within you through the way that you think. What do you think blood pressure going up when you're under pressure is about? It's a chemical change brought about through thought. What do you think hypnosis is? I mean, we use it in medical practice all the time. Dentists use it all the time. You put yourself into a different state. There's no chemistry. There's no drugs. You're not getting any anesthesia. You're putting your brain into what is called an alpha state. And in that state, that you change through thought, which is everything. Remember, it's what you are. Thought is what you are. Thought is also what your husband is and what your children are. It's just your perceptions of them. That's all you get. You can't get to the process of what that human being is. You can only get to one level removed from the process and accept them for what they are in the process that they are. And when you put yourself into this state in a dentist chair, they can drill all day. They can do root canals. And you can think of just anything that you want to. And my dentist told me, Sid Weber, who used to be my dentist when I was living up here, told me that when he was undergoing training to learn this hypnotism, someone told him that he would give a post-hypnotic suggestion that his wedding ring was very hot and that he wouldn't be able to stand the heat of it, so that when that suggestion was given, his mind would go into this other state and he would have to take it off because it would be very uncomfortable. And he went through this thing, and then he mentioned the word, the hypnotic suggestion, and his finger started getting very hot, and he couldn't get the ring off because it was swollen. And he finally, after a lot of struggling, he got it off, and there was like a 3rd-degree burn around his finger. And this is a guy right here in town who's a practicing dentist. And the stories of the kinds of things that you can do through thought are not some magic boogaboo kind of thing. The man in India that we're talking about, who has an ashram in southern India, he's supposedly the highest spiritual being on our planet. He's this peaceful, beautiful human being who can make ashes like come out of the air. He's pulling dust out of the air through his belief in it. And everybody's going, ooh, how do you do that? I got to get you on the Merv Griffin show. For him, it's just as easy as it is for you to get up and brush your teeth in the morning. It's because of the pureness of that thinking system. I can control my thoughts. Store that away. My feelings come from my thoughts. My emotions, my angers, my hatreds, my love, my positive emotions, my negative emotions are all preceded by thoughts. They're the result of thoughts. They're the physiological reactions to thoughts. And emotions, which are very vital and very important to each one of us, can in fact be controlled by our thoughts in positive ways. I'm not an anti-emotion person. I'm not someone who believes that you shouldn't be emotional. I'm saying your emotions should never be immobilizing. They should never be defended as something that you use to keep yourself from being all that you can be, or explaining it all away because I'm just this kind of person. I've always been this way. I can't help it. That's my nature. That's the kind of person I am. You are the kind of person you have chosen to be as a result of how you use what you are, the pureness of your thought. It's all that you are. Your form is leaving. It's changing. In that little tiny drop of protoplasm that once was you, everything was programmed in you. Every hair that you have and every one that fell out. It was in that little drop of protoplasm, all right? That little tiny drop of protoplasm changes and changes, and everything that you need to be all that your form needs to house this soul that you are, and these thoughts that you are, wears out and changes and dies. But thoughts never die. Thoughts never die. That's what it means to be transformed. You've gone beyond your form. And everyone who has ever died, every form that has ever been in your life who has ever died, none of the thoughts that they are could possibly have died. How do you kill a thought? It's the highest form of vibration in the universe. How can you kill it? It's there. Be in tune with it. And you know, we would have a lot less trouble with death if we began to understand that death is just merely a form of transformation. It's all it is. It's a beautiful form. Imagine how necessary it is. Imagine what our planet would be like without it. It'd be very crowded. And yet, there's room for thoughts forever in an unlimited universe. You can't run out of space because you don't need any space for thoughts, do you? And that's what you are. Before you came here in that little tiny drop, there was no space for you. You didn't occupy any space, yet your essence was there. And it will always be there. And it's nothing to ever fear. You don't kill thoughts. Thoughts are what you are. And you can control them all. In fact, you can create whatever you want out of yourself.
Life at the quantum level doesn't distinguish itself between all things that are alive. If you look at the various building blocks of nature, if you look at a rock, for example, a mineral, you'll say, well, it's alive. You know, at the quantum level, a rock looks just like you do. You take it and you break it down and you got these atoms, and then you take it down further, and then you send it off to a lab and it comes back and it's got the same makeup that you do. But you know that the way it is manifested in the world of form that we experience it, it's very different. It just sits there. So we say it has no awareness. It has life, but it has no awareness. And then when you really look at it and discover it at the quantum level, you discover that rocks really do have awareness. And that just your observation of it affects it in a quantum way. And that if you leave a rock in the sun for a certain number of years, it'll fossilize or it'll turn into a diamond, and it will change, and it will have, but it has what we call limited awareness. I mean, a tree or a flower, it doesn't protect its young. I mean, you can go and cut down, you know, all the little branches or take away all the tomato plants and so on, and they don't scream and holler at you. But if you put a plant over here in the shade and then put sunlight over there, what will your plant do? It'll stretch for it. It reaches for it, doesn't it? Do you know that they're discovering that if a gypsy moth invades a forest and hits one tree in the forest, that tree will emit what they call pheromones, which are chemicals that warn all of the other trees around it that there's gypsy moth here. And the trees will take on a protective nature to keep themselves from all being eliminated. There's that awareness. But we certainly think that they have much less awareness than we do. And so you move up from vegetables to animals, and you discover now that animals have much more awareness. They prepare themselves for the future. They gather nuts. They protect their young. They mate. They do many, many of the same things that we do. But they still have limited awareness. And then you get to us. Consciousness, pure consciousness. Each one of us. And most of us, unfortunately, don't live our lives at a high level of awareness. We live our lives at these levels of awareness down here. We survive. We build a mortgage around our form. We perfume it every day. We take care of our young. We do all of the things that you're supposed to do in order to survive, but in terms of higher and higher and higher and highest levels of awareness. Highest level of awareness, meaning being able to, with your mind, affect the world around you and manifest what you want for yourself
and create harmony and so on within you. Most of us don't live that way because we doubt that we can do it. We are raised to believe that we are only at this level and we can have glimpses of up here. But we're still stuck in this old belief system that it just takes faith. We don't know that within us is that intelligence that suffuses all form.
When Deepak and I got together for the first time, and we began to talk about this unified field, and we began to talk about what is possible in the world, and I was talking to him about, genuinely, authentically about miracles. And we talked about if you wanted to have strawberry ice cream, what are the 4 ways, or what are the ways that you have available to get strawberry ice cream? So let me present that to you, our discussion. And you can imagine there was a representative from Nightingale-Conant at the lunch, and she almost fell off of her chair, some of the things that we were talking about that I've been experiencing since I wrote Real Magic. And Deepak was there and my wife was there, and we said, well, let's say you want strawberry ice cream. Let's just, for an example, strawberry ice cream. How many ways are there to get strawberry ice cream? You say, well, from a metaphysical point of view, beyond the awareness level of animals, what are the 4 ways? What are the ways? So we decided there were 4 ways to get strawberry ice cream. We would talk about each one of these. The first way to get strawberry ice cream is to have a thought. And the thought is, I'd like to have some strawberry ice cream. And then the intelligence that your mind begins to create molecules in your body, and the chemicals that you think are just in your mind are also in every cell of your being, and you start having a taste for strawberry ice cream, and then you get up and you walk away, and you get into your car, and you drive to Haagen-Dazs, and you say, I'll take some strawberry ice cream, and you come home and you say, there's my strawberry ice cream. And that's one way to get strawberry ice cream. That is, you have a thought, and then you create the action in the world based upon that thought, right? So there's a connection somewhere between the thought, I'd like some strawberry ice cream, and the action of going out and getting it in one way. That's one way to get strawberry ice cream, and that's not too unusual. Most of you know how to do it. Very few pigs can do that. No tomato plants that I know can do that, and I've never seen a rock do it or even contemplate it. But you can do that, all right? That's a level of consciousness that's pretty powerful. When you think about it, it's pretty powerful. You see, the same intelligence that flows through every one of us is the same intelligence that flows through all the rest of us. It's not like there's a different God flowing through each one of us in this room. There's a oneness, there's a unity, and out of unity is diversity. Out of this deep oneness comes these vibrations that we call, you look like you do, you look like you do. So you have this incredible capacity to be able to think, and that thought, we know that there's one God or one soul or one spirit or one consciousness that makes it all work. And we know that it flows through you and it flows through me. We don't think that there's 1,000 people here today. We don't say that there's 1,000 gods in this room. We all believe that there's one. And it flows through every one of us. So keep that in mind. Now the second way to get strawberry ice cream is to have a thought. I'd like to have some strawberry ice cream. Thought puts into practice molecules of action. And instead of you getting up and going to get it, you tell one of your children to do it for you, which is really powerful. Now you don't have to do anything. You just say, go get me some strawberry ice cream, and it's called slavery, all right? And they say, yes, Daddy, or yes, Mommy, and off they go, and you had the thought, and suddenly strawberry ice cream shows up in your kitchen, all right, and you've got it. So that's the second way to get strawberry ice cream. And those are 2 very common ways, and none of you think too much about those being too spectacular, even though those are really phenomenal things that are happening. Now, the third area of way of getting strawberry ice cream is a way that most of you will now get into the area called booga booga, all right? Or where's he gone now? But it's almost time to go, so I can give you the really far out stuff, all right? And this is, you have a thought, gee, I'd really like to have some strawberry ice cream. and somebody walks by and says, "Excuse me, is this your strawberry ice cream?" And you go, "Wow." And you call your sister, and you call your mother, and you call everybody you can get a hold of, and you say, "You're not going to believe what happened today. I was just thinking about strawberry ice cream, and somebody walked by and said, 'Isn't this your strawberry ice cream?'" It's called synchronicity. And this synchronicity is, there is a connection somehow between a thought and something that's happening in the physical world. It is somehow synchronized and in collaboration with something called maybe fate, but you can't put your finger on it, you can't see it. It's no more bizarre than those little remote control cars that somebody presses a button over here and the car moves over there, even though you've come to accept that. But there is somehow an invisible connection there. Now, all of you have had the experience of thinking of someone or something and having that person then call you, or becoming more, quote, psychic or weird, or, you say things like, "Oh, they know what I'm thinking." Generally, in a relationship that becomes a spiritual partnership, you can begin to know how people are thinking. You can begin to have a knowing in areas where other people have doubt. Like the phone will ring and you'll know who it is, and you'll just absolutely know, and sure enough it'll... Or you're thinking about your sister and you haven't talked to her in 5 years, and you're really thinking about her, or whatever, and then the phone will ring and it'll be her, and you go, "Wow, gee, that's so weird." Now, there's nobody in this room that hasn't had those experiences on a regular basis, but you always attribute them to chaos, to coincidence, to weirdness, But you see, there's a new book called Chaos, and in there, the scientists are discovering that there's order in chaos. That what we think of as chaos and coincidence, that when you study it at the subatomic level, it's all perfect. It's all connected. And then you'll be thinking to yourself, "Gee, I'd really like to get my screen doors repaired, but I don't know who to get." And you'll be driving along the freeway, and there'll be a truck there right next to you with a panel on it that say, "We will repair your screen doors." And you go, "Wow." And you get off the freeway, and they get off too, And then you go over there, and they're over there, and they say, "Our phone number is," and it's the same as yours, but except for one number, or something strange like that. And that person comes in and repairs your screen doors and buys you a lottery ticket, and you make $4 million. I don't know, any number of things that can happen there, are all in this serendipitous category called miracles. It's just too strange to believe. And the irony is that as you become more conscious, as you begin to trust in this inner intelligence that cannot be spelled or written in any particular way, that defies description. They say the Tao that can be described is not the Tao. As you become more in tune with this part of yourself, these kinds of circumstances and events and things begin to show up more and more and more, and you get more and more powerful until you get to a point where you begin to know that anything that I can get into my imagination and hang there and have there and keep it there, I can create through my mind, including my ability, as long as I'm on love and at ease, including improving my wealth, including improving my health and healing myself of what I thought was incurable. And the fourth way to get strawberry ice cream is to have the thought, "I'd really like to have some strawberry ice cream." And you manifest it from nothingness, just like you've manifested everything else in your life. For when you believe in yourself, you trust in the wisdom that created you.
You have to take responsibility for everything that you are in your life and everything that you live internally, all right? Now, the word responsibility to me means responding with ability. It doesn't mean responding with disability, otherwise the word would be respond disability. It is responsibility. I have the ability to respond. I can respond with ability. You see, anything that you hate or are annoyed by or are angry about is really your own hatred, your own annoyance, and your own anger. That's yours. You own it. All right? Nobody else owns that. Nobody else can put that into you. Nobody injects you with anger or annoyance. It's all something that you own. And what happens as you move along the path in a more enlightened way is that you tend to regard the people who behave towards you in ways that you used to call annoying. You begin to see that as their problem. You don't own it any longer. You don't take it on to you any longer. So now you're responding with ability towards the people who are behaving in ways that you don't like. I mean, I can give you an example of being on an airplane, and a stewardess was very rude and forgot who it was that was responsible for her being there, the customers, all right? And she said something to me about where my bag was to go. And I said, I would like to put it over. And she and responded in a real huffy kind of way. You will put it, blah, 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 and got real angry, all right? And you could see it. Now, there was a time when I would have been angry back at her, and I would have responded with disability and used anger in response to anger, which just creates more anger, all right? But instead, at that moment, and I didn't even think about it, this is something that you evolve to, I knew instantly that this was her problem. And I said to her, boy, you must be really having a tough day. You've probably been flying all over the country right now. She said, oh, yeah, this is 2 days without sleep. I said, why don't you just relax? I'll get this thing put away. It became a solution-oriented way to dealing with it rather than a problem-oriented way. But more important, the reason that that person no longer became an annoying figure in my life is because I didn't own it. I understood that as hers. That's her stuff. She's got that. All right? It has nothing to do with me. And you have to always keep in mind that you're looking for solutions. You're not looking to be right. You're not looking to win. When you blame somebody else for being annoying in your life, what you're really saying is, if only you were more like me right now, then I wouldn't be so annoyed. And what you have to do is bypass that kind of thinking and say to yourself, you are who you are, and you're behaving in the only way that you know how to behave right now. That's all you know. So what I will do as a human being is I will respond to you with what I am, which is love, or which is kindness, or which is acceptance, or which is at least confidence in myself as a human being. And if I have that, then I can respond to other people's behavior, or I can ignore it, or I can walk past it, or I can deal with it effectively and never own it. You never want to own it.
I have gone from telling people how to get something to trying to teach people now how to be something. And being is the essence of what I'm talking about. You must be it. Whatever it is, you must be health. You must not be trying to get it from pills or a doctor. You must be it. You must think it, live it, and be it. The great tape that I was talking about was Earl Nightingale's. It's called The Strangest Secret. It's the most popular cassette tape ever made. Earl Nightingale's tape goes like this. He said, the strangest secret is that human beings become whatever it is they visualize themselves to be. That if you were to take 100 people, say 100 people off the street, and just follow them at age 25, and follow them for 40 years, you will find at the age of 65 that 3 of those people will be independently wealthy. 3. 42 of them will have done all right, but will still need some financial help in order to get through their days, the rest of their lives. And 55 of them will be broke. 55 people out of 100 are going to be broke. And 42 are not going to have enough money to get through without help from someone. And 3 are going to be independent financially. Why? That was the question he postulated. Why? And I ask you, why do you think that's true? Because people see themselves in a certain way. And they think about the way that they see themselves all day long. At Macy's, the great big department store in New York, they had a program where they were promoting people to management, but they were taking people from outside of the company. And the unions all got together and they said, this is unfair and how dare you do this, and we think you should promote from within. And they said, okay, we will. And they put together, they said, here's what we'll do. We're going to offer a management training program and we're going to give credit for it. And you have to stay 2 days a week on Tuesdays and Thursdays from 5 o'clock to 7 o'clock and go through this management training. We're going to give it to you free as part of your benefit because we want to promote from within. That's something we want to do. And the unions thought that was great and everybody was real pleased about that. So they had their sign-ups and all of that. Now, let me ask you, what percentage of people that worked for Macy's do you think were willing to stay from 5 o'clock to 7 o'clock 2 days a week to learn management principles and to learn management training and to become trained free and get college credit for it in order to move on up into the management circle and to improve themselves and to make more money and do the things that they want to do? What percentage do you think volunteered to do that? 3 out of every 100 people took them up on it. 97 said, wait a minute, what the hell are you doing? You want me to stay after? 2 hours sitting there listening to this junk? You must be crazy. I don't want to do that. I got stuff to do. I got to go home and drink beer or whatever it is they've got to do. 3. The same 3. You see, there's a lot of people who want to get 100% out and put in 1 or 2%. And they want to do that over and over again. And you see examples of it everywhere. Now, the great secret, the strangest secret, we become what we think about all day long. The question is, what do you think about all day long? Now, I'm not talking about whether you walk around saying, hey, I'm terrific and I'm going to do great things, and that's it. This is not it at all. Creative visualization is understanding first how you think. You think in pictures. Do you know that? We think as humans in pictures. We don't think in words. If I say garbage can, you don't think G-A-R, there's a B in there, there's an A-G-E-C-A-N, a can, and you don't think like that. You see a picture of a garbage can. If I say microphone, you picture a microphone. If I say beautiful person, whatever, you have a picture. All of our thinking is done in pictures. The greatest contribution that psychologists have made in this century, and there haven't been many, all right? The great contribution is we have discovered that an image gets stored away in you, whatever you is, whoever you are, gets stored away within you exactly the same as an experience, as doing something. That your subconscious, whatever that is, wherever that is, it's like a robot. It's like a dumb, stupid robot. It just stores things away, and they stay there forever. Forever. My grandmother was 95. She died last April 15th. She was almost 96 years old. And in the last couple years of her life, she started talking about things that happened in 1891. And it was a Tuesday, she said, and it was the 13th of April. It was a Tuesday, and my girlfriend Gladys, she came over and I said, Grandma, how do you know a Tuesday in April the 13th in 1891? It was there. We looked up, we went back and looked through all the calendar, and there she was. Right, Tuesday on the 13th, it was there. Everything that happens to you is stored away. Your brain has trillions of cells. Not millions, not billions, trillions of cells. It is capable of things that are just so phenomenal as far as healing, as far as health goes, as far as success goes. And it all depends on how you see yourself. Now, you get trained as a young person not to see yourself as a very competent human being, especially you women. Most of you were trained not to think of yourselves as equal with men or better. When you were little girls, many of you were taught that in order to be athletic, that's not feminine and that's not appropriate, and you don't do that. And so you have a lot of these sentences. And I ask you about these sentences that you use in your mind. The I'ms. I'm nervous. I'm shy. I'm not very good at mathematics. I'm not a good cook. I'm clumsy. You figure out the I'm. Now, every I'm that you have, a lot of that was encouraged because you weren't encouraged to take risks, and you must take risks. if you want to be successful in life. You must take risks. When you're a child, I've heard parents say, don't you go near that water until you know how to swim. And I think, there's something missing in that logic there somewhere. And so you train yourself when you're young because you believe that stuff. Not that it's anybody else's fault. You believe it. You believed it. You didn't have to. Now you got to take responsibility for buying it. And if it doesn't apply anymore, sell it. And if nobody wants to buy it, then just give it away. Get rid of it. All right? And change the images. Now, what kind of images do you have? Here we are. We're going on a trip. And here's the car. And here's the trunk. Okay? Now we're getting all ready and we put all the suitcases in the suitcase. Clearly it says in the car manual how many suitcases this trunk holds. 5 suitcases. It says that. You got 6 suitcases sitting right there in the ground. Now how do you visualize it? Who are you? What kind of a thinker are you? Do you know that most people, all of the 55 who are going to be broke, most of the 42 who are going to need help, are going to say, you can't get those suitcases in that trunk. Now, when you have that kind of a picture that it can't be done, do you know how that gets stored away in terms of the action that you take on it? You say, we're just going to have to repack them, or we're going to have to put one in the back seat, and that's it. It can't be done. There's 3 or 4 of those who say, now there's a challenge. I know it can be done. And you know there are people like that. Those suitcases are going to get in the trunk. I know it. And they start maneuvering this, and they put it over there, and if I did this, and they see it happening. What kind of visions do you have? Who are you? I coached basketball for a couple of years back in Detroit. And I had read this study about visualizing and teaching people how to shoot free throws. All right? They took 100 people over here, and they just took them into the gym, and they said, shoot 100 free throws. And they shot, and they said, okay, go back and come back in a month, and we're going to test you again. Then they took another group, and they had them practice for 2 hours a day, shooting free throws. All right? Just practice over and over again. Then they took another group of people, and they taught them how to use visualization in shooting free throws. They had them close their eyes at the line, and they had them bounce and hold the ball. Now, this is without a ball. All right? We took these young men and trained them how to shoot free throws in bed and how to get into bed at night and to close their eyes and to hold the ball in their hand and to actually see the ball and to feel it and to shoot it and to put the arc on it right and to visualize it going through the hoop and to see it. Not to see it bouncing off the rim and saying, I can't do this, but to practice this. And doing that for 2 hours a day, literally seeing it happen. Then they retested all 3 groups, and they found that the people who didn't practice or didn't do anything deteriorated. Their skills went down. The people who practiced every day improved like 24%. The people who visualized also improved 23 or 24%. And the people who did it together, practice with the visualization, could improve as much as 40%. I'm not standing up here in front of all of you people saying that all you have to do is put a different picture in your head and your life is going to turn around. I am saying, and get this, I am saying that you must start first with the kinds of pictures that you have. And then they will get stored away in you as reality. And when that reality gets stored away in you, you will start acting on that reality rather than on another reality.
There are divine people that I have read about that have this gift of manifestation, that live at this thing that we call Christ consciousness or Siddhi consciousness, which is a consciousness in which there is a thought and then there is no time lag between the thought and its manifestation into the physical world. There are people who live at this high level of awareness, of consciousness. And I've read about them, and all of them say that each and every one of us have that as well. What's going on here? If they can do it, and they're telling us that we can do it, then what do we have to do in order to be able to do that? And doesn't that seem like to our rational sort of left brain that might be a logical thing for us? So what I'd like to do is I'd like to share with you a poem. The poem is called The Cookie Thief. And it was written by Valerie Cox. The Cookie Thief. A woman was waiting at an airport one night with several long hours before her flight. She hunted for a book in the airport shop, bought a bag of cookies, and found a place to drop. She was engrossed in her book, but happened to see that the man beside her, as bold as could be, grabbed a cookie or two from the bag between, which she tried to ignore to avoid a scene. She munched cookies and watched the clock as the gutsy cookie thief diminished her stock. She was getting more irritated as the minutes ticked by, thinking, if I wasn't so nice, I'd blacken his eye. With each cookie she took, he took one too. When only one was left, she wondered what he'd do. With a smile on his face and a nervous laugh, he took the last cookie and broke it in half. He offered her half as he ate the other. She snatched it from him and thought, oh, brother, this guy has some nerve, and he's also rude. Why, he didn't even show any gratitude. She had never known when she had been so galled, and sighed with relief when her flight was called. She gathered her belongings and headed to the gate, refusing to look back at that thieving ingrate. She boarded the plane and sank in her seat, then sought her book, which was almost complete. As he reached in her baggage, she gasped with surprise. There was her bag of cookies in front of her eyes. If mine are here, she moaned with despair, then the others were his, and he tried to share. Too late to apologize, she realized with grief that she was the rude one, the ingrate, the thief. Isn't that great? So how many times in your life have you absolutely known something? I mean, I have 8 children, okay? I mean, I have been the cookie thief so many times, it's really hard for me to admit this on tape, all right? When you know that something is a certain way, and you're absolutely certain of it. I mean, I can remember just recently accusing 3 of my kids of hiding my keys. I put them right here. This is where I left them, and don't tell me you didn't come and play with them. I've seen you do it before. Now, where are my keys? You've got to stop playing with my keys. I've told you before, when I'm in a hurry, I have to know where my keys are. I didn't do it, Daddy. Honest, I didn't do it. Honest, I was just playing. I didn't touch your keys this time. Yeah, right. Where are my keys? And I go around accusing everybody in the house of taking my keys. Then I went back and looked in my jeans pocket. There were my keys. The cookie thief. But, we've all done this where we've had a knowing about something and then later on realized it. And, of course, I don't want to, it's very hard to admit. You go to each one of your little kids, especially if they're 5 and 6, and say, Daddy really is a jerk, I'm really sorry. I just sort of let that one pass over. I found my keys, But it also applies in the kinds of things that I am talking about in this program. This idea of moving into territory that we know in our hearts and in our consciousness is not something that we can do. And we know it. And getting out of that mode of thinking and transcending that doubt and creating this knowing, rather than a belief, but a strong knowing within us, is very, very significant and important in understanding this business of manifesting. It means really removing the contamination process from your life. That which has been told you over and over and over again that is not possible for you. And many of the ideas here are very radical and will be perceived by some as almost blasphemous and perhaps entering into territory and giving people false hope and telling people that they can do things that they really can't do. But I know better. And when I practice manifesting, when I practice these techniques that I'll be sharing with you here, I see the results. So it isn't just something that I am speaking about from wishful thinking, if you will, or just hoping and then having some lucky break sort of come along. What I'd like you to do now, listening to this program, each of you here, I'd like you to really think, if you knew, which means an absence of doubt, just like you know how to ride a bicycle or you know how to swim and you know it, like if you know how to swim and someone throws you into a swimming pool, you are not going to drown. You know you can swim, and your nature just takes over, and you just swim out of it. If someone hands you a bicycle here, and you've been on it before, even though it's just two little wheels moving through space, if you knew that you could ride it, because you've had that direct experience of it, you wouldn't have any doubt. You would get on it. If you'd never been on one before, then you would have some doubt. So if you had a knowing based upon a direct experience that you had this capacity or this power or this ability, this talent, this unique quality of being able to manifest something for yourself in your life that you have perceived to be missing in your life, whether it's any of the things that I've just talked about in terms of abundance, overcoming scarcity, healing, whether it's a promotion, whether it's selling your home, whether it's having a child, whether it's creating a divine relationship, whether it's getting out of the one you're in, whether it's attracting to you what it is that you would like to be able to attract, just by virtue of being able to use your inner world and have it then begin to show up. If you knew you had this, even the least among you can do all that I have done and even greater things. If you knew that, what would it be? And just sort of jot it down in your consciousness. What would that be? And even if it was a healing for somebody else, or even if it's a very, quote, unselfish, being able to create world peace, or being able to affect a healing of someone close to you, or whatever. If you knew you had it, what would it be? And just put your attention on it. And later on, as we begin to practice this technique, I'd like you to begin to see and practice it for 15 days. In the morning and in the evening, as I prescribe later on in this program. And then just begin to look for the cues. Not demanding that it show up in the way that you think it should show up, because very likely it won't. It'll show up in a completely different way. It is taking your own divine self and beginning to have a knowing that is so powerful that you begin to practice certain principles that put you in touch with or align you with that spirit that creates and causes everything in the physical domain. And it's a very exciting kind of thing, particularly for me, because it gives me a real strong
first step toward improving your life, a step others neglect. You see, we know that if you get just one great idea from this program, it will be worth many times over the price you pay. Plus, the ideas we share will benefit you for a lifetime. It is as simple as listening, learning, and applying these great ideas and techniques in your life. When you do, you'll see real and significant improvements immediately. It's been said the path to success is to take massive, determined action. Take action now by continuing on to the next session. For 50 years, we've seen firsthand how our products empower people to be, do, and have more in life. But it only works if you continue to listen, learn, and act. Thank you for listening to this Nightingale-Conant audio program. Enjoy the rest of this program.